Arrow functions came out in PHP 7.4, which are just anonymous functions with a shorthand syntax. So before we even begin, if you have Windows WAMP, just scroll over the WAMP icon, go to PHP, look at the version, and make sure 7.4.0 is selected. So why arrow functions over anonymous functions? Well, we don't have to use the use keyword anymore to bind the scope of the outer variable, which is a huge advantage, and for simpler things it just looks a lot cleaner. Let's look at the example we did with anonymous functions in the previous tutorial. So we had stuff dog say is equal to anonymous function, and all we did with the anonymous function is say echo dog says cats suck. So then in order to call that anonymous function, we would say stuff dog say and do our open and close parentheses. We can then go to the browser, open up our function, and it's right there. Dog says cats suck. All right, so let's go now. And how would we transform this anonymous function into an arrow function? With an arrow function, we will not be able to use the echo statement nor the return statement because it will just be returning something. Always, the arrow function returns the statement after the double arrow syntax. So how would we convert this anonymous function into an arrow function? Let's go ahead and create a new variable, stuff dog say 2. And we're going to use the short arrow function syntax, which just basically says after the assignment operator, we're going to use this fn for shorthand function, use the double arrow syntax, and it's going to return automatically something. So for example, we could say dog suck is what it's going to return. As you can see, we will not be able to use the echo statement nor the return statement. The arrow function returns the statement after the double arrow syntax. In order to display this to the screen, we'll have to use an echo statement. So we'll say stuff dog say 2, and because it is returning a function, we have to add the open close parentheses after this variable. Let's go over here, hit refresh, and there it is, cats suck. I'm going to add a couple of break tags, just like I normally do, so that we can see the stuff a little clearer from now on. If you're wondering if you can use curly braces around the statement, you can't. It all needs to be done on the single line. If we wanted to pass arguments using the arrow functions, we can do that too. So we can say, for example, stuff dogs say 3, and then we would have our arrow function, and then within the parentheses, we would declare the parameter. So for example, say, and then we can return dog say, and they could concatenate that saying, or we can just return a saying, whatever you want to do. So then in order, again, to display this, we could say echo stuff dog say 3. And this time they might say, let me out. So if we go back to the browser, hit refresh, there we go. Dogs say, let me out. So then one of the biggest differences, like we mentioned at the beginning of this tutorial, in the anonymous function example, we had to use the use keyword to access the variable outside of the function scope. With arrow syntax, we don't. So we could say something like y is equal to 1. And then we can declare an arrow function, name it add, and we can say fn, and even pass it a parameter. We'll say x plus y. When we call, we're just going to do an echo add, we can pass it another number. And what we're doing right here is we're calling our add function, we're passing it this number 2. This number 2 is being passed right here inside this arrow function, and it's grabbing y as a variable outside of its scope without having to use the use keyword. So let's go back to the screen. Let me first copy this break statement, and we'll put that actually right here. Go ahead and refresh our browser, and there it is. There's the result. Exactly what we're expecting, the number 3. because 1 plus 2 is 3. If we didn't have the arrow syntax, we would have to basically do the following with an anonymous function. So we could say add2 is equal to function x use y, because y is not within the scope. Then we could say return x plus y. And then we could say echo add2. Go back to the browser, hit refresh. And of course it's causing an error because I forgot to put in a number in here because it's expecting an argument. Now it should display 6 to the screen if we hit refresh, and sure enough, there it is. So that's it for arrow functions. There's a couple other things that I want to kind of cover, but we'll be looking at callback functions in the next tutorial.